What's up, everyone? Welcome back. Today, as I'm walking my dog here, I figured this would be a good opportunity to talk about some stuff that is deer candy that I have growing right here in my backyard, and that is Red Osier Dogwood. So stay tuned. All right, guys, this is gonna be a little bit of a combo video of Red Osier Dogwood here in my backyard. First, I want to show you this. This is kind of my my little experiment here. This was a dogwood that was growing up in this pallet that I found a year ago, and it was teeny tiny. I mean, it was, just barely sticking out of the pallet, about the size of this 2 years ago. And check out that growth now. I mean, this thing is absolutely huge. The tallest stem on it is actually about as tall as me, and I'm 6'3". What I also wanted to talk about is a video I did a couple years ago as well, where I planted a bunch of Red Osier Dogwood. And what I did back then versus what I would do now is completely different. So first off, I want to give a shout out to a channel where I certainly learned quite a bit from, and I hope I'm saying this right. That is 80s Backyard Nursery. Definitely a channel you want to check out just for some Red Osier Dogwood propagation tips and kind of paying attention to detail. That is something that I didn't do that I think hurt me. So what I did in that previous video, which I'll put a link down below, is I basically just took a whole bunch of cuttings. I got as many as I could, and I just went gangbusters, and I stuck them in any muddy spot I could find back in my woods. And you know what? That worked. That I would say I had maybe 50%, maybe a little bit more that I think took root. At least, they sprouted leaves, and you could definitely tell ones with leaves versus ones that didn't and ones that just kind of rotted. But I think I can get a better propagation rate. Another thing though, even with the ones that did sprout or did start growing, the deer hammered them real quick. And I think not having a fully established root system and having deer browse them right away essentially killed almost all of them. So that video that I did you guys, an update for that is I have very little dogwood growing in that area. First thing that I would do different is I would cage it. If I'm going to do cuttings, especially if I'm not going to do a lot, just to get some stuff established, to get some stuff growing like this. I mean, if this is 2 years of growth, this would be fantastic in some spots back in my woods. And it would be really easy to pay attention to detail, put some cuttings in the ground that I'm confident are going to grow, and cage them so the deer can't browse them. Another thing you could do if you don't want to cage it, stick it in the top of a down tree, or hinge cut a tree, or cut a tree down, anywhere where you can put it in a little bit of brush just to help deter the deer from browsing it too early and just killing that cutting. That is going to help you out a ton. Another thing I learned from 80s Backyard Nursery is the number of nodes that you want below a cutting and above a cutting, and then scoring it. So I'm going to take a cutting actually off of this. I'm going to show you guys what I learned on his channel, and you can watch it there as well. But I'm going to do one here, and this is how I'm going to do cuttings moving forward. Let me flip the camera around here real quick. All right, guys, here's about a 12-inch cutting. It's probably a little thinner than a pencil, but here is the attention to detail that I didn't do. Do you guys see those two nodes down on the bottom? So that is what is going to basically start growing roots. If you have two nodes below, that's going to start your roots. Two nodes or more above, that is going to start the new plant. And what you want to do is you want to score this cutting. You want to knock those nodes off and kind of just etch it up like that. Now that is what you want to stick in the ground. So that is going to help those roots get started. Also, another thing that this is going to help you do, and on dogwood, normally it's pretty easy to tell, but depending on what your cuttings look like, if you do this right away when you take a cutting, this is going to help you remember just which way to stick it in the ground, because you cannot stick a cutting in upside down. It won't grow if it's upside down. So two nodes below the ground, just kind of cut them off, scrape it up a little bit to help that root get started. If you want to use rooting hormone, you can. But from what I've found, Red Osier Dogwood is easy to propagate if you have just a little bit of attention to detail like this right here, and rooting hormone isn't necessarily needed. All right, so another tip, and I'm going to show you guys an example of this for getting more dogwood: give birds places to poop. I know that kind of sounds funny, but the way dogwood naturally just kind of takes over areas or propagates is birds eat the berries, poop out the seed, and you get new dogwood. You got to give birds a place to poop. So you might look out in a swamp and you might see dogwood in kind of pockets. It might be in a down tree, or next to a, kind of tangled up in a tag elder or something, but it might not necessarily be in the entire swamp, in the sea of cattails or reed canary grass or whatever. That's because birds aren't sitting there on a tree branch or on something where they can take a poop. So give birds areas where they can do that. Like if you have dogwood in your swamp, and I've done this, hinge a few trees over or cut a few trees down along your kind of transition line and just have a top go in. Even if you don't stick dogwood cuttings in that top, if you give the birds a place to poop, I can almost guarantee you more dogwood's gonna come up there if you already have it in the area. And if I turn this around, I mean, I honestly don't know how that got there. I mean, I guess a bird landed on this pallet and that's how it got there. But before, I had no dogwood here in my backyard. I'm gonna turn my camera around now, and now that this one is bigger and has berries and stuff every year, you guys should see all the dogwood that's right here in my backyard. Okay, camera's flipped around now, so you can kind of see the rest of this open area, right? There's no dogwood, or I haven't found any new ones. But if you look up under this tree branches and stuff, I've got some coming up here now, and I really didn't notice that much last year, and this stuff has grown up a lot more. Other ones that are real evident, I mean, this is basically the same kind of ground. This soil too, you guys, this is like absolute garbage soil. I mean, it is basically the end of my gravel driveway coming down here to my barn. So this stuff is really hard, really rocky, and this is growing in it. I put up this fence a few years ago, and now that this dogwood is established, check this out. Dogwood growing right up in along the fence. Here's some more. And the only reason, at least to me, why that dogwood is growing there is because birds were eating berries off of this one, or maybe something else back. You can see there's a little bit back there in the swamp. They landed on the fence, pooped out a seed, and boom, new dogwood. And just to kind of finish this video off, if you ever wondered what dogwood tastes like, I'm gonna tell you right now. It's pretty chewy. It tastes like apple. It tastes, it's not necessarily sweet, but it tastes like very mild, dry apple. And I mean, this stuff really is candy to deer, especially in the wintertime when they are, you know, looking for food. I mean, you guys all know that's the reason you're watching this video, is that deer love this stuff and that it's easy to propagate, and legitimately it tastes pretty good. So my recommendation, guys, check out a few other channels. Definitely check out 80s Backyard Nursery. And just pay a little bit of attention to detail. I wouldn't do what I did previously. Like, you can try it, especially if you have a really big area and you need to move fast. But at a minimum, I would pay attention to those nodes, knock them off, you know, score the bottom of that cutting, just help promote that root growth. Cage it if you can, protect it if you can, because I think it's really gonna help. And, you know, obviously now is a great time. Like, these have not leafed out yet or anything. Middle of March right now, it's wet, is a great time to propagate dogwood if you're thinking about doing this on your hunting property. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope this helps you out. If you did like this video, please hit that like button down below for me. Also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you again soon. Thanks for tuning in. Remember, be a sportsman, make a sportsman.